Okay, good morning. Mr. Jones, good morning or afternoon. Absolutely. And Dota, good morning. Thank you very much for the 14 months. I do appreciate that. It is very much appreciated. Okay, not that, not that. Flashbang, there you go. Okay, files changed. Um, do me a favor, if you have the chance. There's a comment up here. I don't know how to technically resolve it. Like it's resolved, but the notification is still there. You should be able to close the conversation, or if it's gone stale, you can mark it as such. If you get a chance, um, go and drop a like or subscribe to Dan's stream. So Dan got unceremoniously um, banned from this platform um, for some reason, which he's still yet to know about. But he's now struggling to uh, gain any traction because YouTube alone is not great at platform discovery. So now he's sitting there for long periods of time in quiet. So try to support him. Morning, Rambling Geek. How's it going? Oh, afternoon. Sorry. Okay. So, what does this week bring? How is your week starting? Well, I hope. Users, I always forget the user email, sign in. So now often I say without passkeys. I should probably allow developers to build a sprint. Let's remove that. Let's move that forward to today. That's what we're reviewing. You probably need to start thinking about what in progress means and what triggers in progress, because I'm starting to think that the status of this, once things start on it, the status doesn't mean the same thing. Yeah, feeling good today. A chill weekend and work is okay. Nice. Nice. Morning, one line. How you doing? Okay. So last week we were working on the tasks. Yeah, it's starting off good. And over the weekend, so we did the create sprint last week. Over the weekend, I did get the function working, so you can go in here now, and you can assign a sprint to. He says in theory, you can assign a sprint to a task. So that's one way of doing that. So this week we're going to focus a little bit on what this means, why this probably, well, this will stay here because it does matter, but some of the challenges that brings now. Now I'm thinking about it from a usability standpoint. And again, the challenge for me comes in, I'm a solo dev working on this project. Emulating the behavior of many teams is going to start getting difficult. So I don't think I'm going to see the real challenges until, say, I have other people working in the software as a different team building those things out. So it might be that I have to know where the real weaknesses in this process are, to see that working. I have to not only dog food the application, but I have to figure out a design that works. So it might be that I have to focus somewhat on getting the deployment working. You need a team to test it for you. Yeah. So I might need to get a version deployed and configured so we can see it working, or not working, as it probably will be. So yeah. Now we do have another part working, starting to be worked on. So Mojo has been working on a component. Is it running? Yes, it is. Control Tower. So Control Tower is a back-end application for managing Liquid Sky that has been being worked on, and Mojo is starting to work on that. So this, again, let's see. It takes a while to start this one, doesn't it? I'm not going to focus on Control Tower on stream, but I just wanted to show it because it is kind of starting to get into that teams based. We need to track multiple projects. We need to track multiple tools. So the admin here will show. I just tested this a minute ago. He says with confidence, home, admin. Is that still loaded? That's still loaded. There you go. So starting to put that together. I don't know why that's slow. I think it was still compiling in the background. I think it compiles on the fly. So, but I just tested adding a tenant in Liquid Sky and validating that the tenant appeared over here. So this is starting to be worked on. So we do have multiple projects in place. We're just going to get to the point where we're testing it. So I found an event-driven book on Watchflowers. We're doing it on eventing. Nice. Nice. I have one on event-driven microservices. I haven't finished it. White book. Yeah. I think I got about 3 chapters in. I probably should finish that one. Might give me some hints. So yeah, just wanted to show that, you know, there's a whole lot of content. We are starting to, there's a bit more going on. So I will not focus on Control Tower on stream. If Mojo chooses to stream some of that, that's Mojo's choice. But that is a project that is going alongside to do administration, configuring users who can manage Liquid Sky, and ultimately, things like billing and subscriptions would be managed through this platform. So it's not a component of Liquid Sky itself. So we'll focus on that later. And this uses Next.js versus Angular. The whole thing made me realize there's more than one architecture choice. Pick the one that fits your use case, should be how it's done. Yeah, very much so. Okay, so let's stop that running. Let's close that. We don't need Control Tower running to support Liquid Sky. Liquid Sky is standalone. But you may see some things change. Having discussed a little bit over the weekend about this, I think that what will end up happening is this tenant management component will shift to be it's like the whole registration and thing, that will shift to be a Control Tower component, because it doesn't matter to Liquid Sky. It's an actual administrative component. So we'll probably shift this entire component out of this project into the other project, and build it that way. And then this would be kind of organization management, which would be for the customer, their organization to manage. And that would be things like the projects and stuff. And that starts to, again, once you consider the different design, this now feels less hacky. Because if you think about it, all this tenant stuff and user stuff, then to stick projects in here, just felt sticking projects in here was not the right place, but it was the most appropriate place, being that it was tenant wide. But if we start to consider that tenant management is a back-end concern, because tenants don't have, you're not a tenant as a customer, you're an organization, that's all you care about. So if we start to think about that as this, about this being organization management, then projects fits here, and all the other stuff goes into the control tower side of things. So I think there's some design changes coming along there. But I don't want to tackle that right now because we've got a lot more in flux. So today what I'm going to focus on is I'm going to try and display the sprints, which is going to highlight a one problem. I think immediately it's going to highlight a problem. But then we're going to get to how do we figure out the testing and all those sorts of things. Yeah. Mojo does stream, not on a schedule right now. And again, the choice is his as to whether he streams anything to do with this platform. But yeah, but he's done an incredible job on getting that up and running so far. Fortunately, it's pretty hard to be hexagonal, CQRS, onion, event driven expert all at the same time. So, I mean, that's exactly why I tackle things the way I tackle them. It's why you can't say to me, "Oh, it's this architecture, it's this architecture," and me go, "Oh, okay," because to me, it's not about it's not about whether it fits someone's neat definition of a thing. I think the design will evolve and show itself. Even before we moved this code to be kind of clean architecture aligned, but even then we started to see those differences appear, and it just highlighted that everyone's got, they start with a core and then they work from that. What matters more is we can change this to deal with what it needs to deal with next, and if we need to rip pieces out, we can rip pieces out. Like this, taking this and dropping it in the other project doesn't scare me, right? All it changes is which topics it creates and who listens to what when. Building a new project for customer management for this piece doesn't scare me because it's lifting the pieces out. Is schema versioning your messages? Not right this second. My intention would be to grow into using Kafka schema for the events. That would give us more resilience there, because that means that if a system hasn't been updated to take the new message version, it won't accept it, and therefore you can't break your system. It does mean you have to plan, because it took me a while to understand what Kafka schema actually did. And there's two components. Obviously, there's you can actually build the tools to actually set up the messages, so you don't need a shared library. But then you also have that schema version, so you can say, okay, the schema's changed on the message, and now all these other systems don't listen to it because they've not been updated yet. So you have a bunch of systems you have to get deployed quickly, otherwise they end up behind. Is Kafka the source of truth for the system? No. The source of truth is the databases themselves. Kafka is not. Because it's not temporal. I suppose it is. Oh, interesting. I read the above as a thing that Kafka's the source of truth. I consider the source of truth the owner of the data, right? So planning items are owned by planning. Tasks are played by are owned by tasks. Right, but it's not an event stream. So it is an event stream. It's exactly what Kafka is. but it has a time, right? It has a time window. So you have a retention policy on Kafka. Now, people do use Kafka as a database. So you could essentially say that it has, a 5-year retention and get every single message ever, right? And then snapshot once in a while so that and then you publish the snapshot like every month or something. So, or you could use a strategy where Kafka is the source of truth for the system, yes. Um, there are ways of doing that, but I'm not sure I would want to because I kind of like Kafka as the tombstoning, snapshotting. Yeah, you can do that to make the events source of truth. Yeah, but I think you need the messages to be event sourced also. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. And again, I'm using Kafka as state change or state publishing essentially. And again, I've run this message style past people at Confluent. They've seen this way of doing it and they did not have any issues with the way we were doing it, right? So I know that it's not invalid. Um, but yes, you could say the event was the event source message, right? And then change the state. But I'm using Kafka on the other side of things, right? Um, yes, that is a challenge. The moment you start to distribute data, things get harder, right? So for me, a schema would help because then if I update the schema for this message, and let's say Mojo is controlling something in Control Tower, but that piece isn't ready for that message yet, right? Then at a certain point, that Control Tower system won't. Um, I need to stop specifying who because it's getting team, but Control Tower doesn't understand that message yet because it's not been updated to the latest schema. It shouldn't process that message. Whereas right now, if I change the schema and publish the message, Control Tower will consume it and fail if it's not ready for that thing yet. Um, so that's why the shared library right now, the foundation library, is our best bet. So schema would replace this need of having this library because you'd be able to say, okay, well, subscribe to the schema and pull it, but it's a lot more to deal with. And yeah, have to consider. Yeah, the bigger the system gets, the more I have to consider in terms of just raw effort. Um, so yeah. Also, wasn't suggesting this way of doing Kafka is wrong. Just these are sort. Yeah, yeah. I know. I was just clarifying because it's like to um, I've contemplated using Kafka in many different ways. Um, and again, one popular way is to kind of use it as a message bus. So you can actually use Kafka to back mass transit. Right? Logs. Yeah. But yeah, it's working. So let's get this merged. Let's get this done so we can move on to the next phase. Don't start now. It's 25 past 7. Nobody. Nobody. Come on, time to lie down. No, you're not coming up. No, no, no. The last thing I read was don't have a type property in the messages. Oh, yeah. Really? You're going to burp in my face? Um, these messages contain. Loki, can I have my right arm, please? Um, So an event from my perspective, so I have the integration events. These are all those. So like tenant has tenant identifier and company name, and the default integration event contains event source, event ID occurred on, and source user identifier. So event source, Loki has joined the stream early apparently today. Um, event source is this dog is a cat. Um, event source is kind of like whether it was because the tenant was created, the tenant was updated. He's also got my headphone cord around his head because he just snuck up right underneath the headphones. There you go, bud. Okay. He's just super. He's just super friendly. Hi, Suresh. How you doing, buddy? Loki. Him a chair, same height as yours, doggy cam, and he can just chill next to you. We might have to consider doing that. Although he doesn't like sitting on this. He doesn't like the wheelchair. I'm good. Your channel just showed up in my YouTube. Nice. Well, if you like dev content, um, yeah. So what I'm working on is a platform for project management and planning. Uh, um, oh, if we could just see around Mr. Loki's head. I mean, he is living up to the name Loki today, I suppose, or recently, right, Mr. Mischief? Um, I'm more on the PowerShell C sharp next level. That's cool. Oh, this is the way we're doing it now, is it? He has chosen to lay down on my keyboard, so we'll see how this goes. So, Project Liquid Sky is a planning tool. Think Jira. It is my take on what I believe. He says it's loading. It's loading everything in the background back end. Oh no, it's not. It's not loading anything right now. You got to do full stack. He's chosen laying down on my lap with my left arm firmly locked to my keyboard. So this is going to be interesting today. Um, nope. Stopping me from typing, bud. Um, so yeah, Project Liquid Sky is a distributed system for tracking, planning, and for uh, tasks, and ultimately ticketing and all those sorts of fun things. I don't think he likes you streaming. The funny thing is, if I'm sitting here on my own, he definitely is okay with just sitting under the desk. Um, up to Dev. Thank you very much for the follow, by the way. If I'm looking funny, it's because my earphones are now pulled in a weird place because he's just sat on them. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, thank you for the follow. Um, so the idea of this system is a distributed system. It's me from YouTube, right? Thank you very much. Thank you for the follow. Um, I stream to YouTube and Twitch every day, Monday to Friday, for 2 hours, and all the past videos are uploaded to YouTube. Thank you. I do very much appreciate that. Is that because I assume you aren't sat there talking to yourself when not live? Yeah, I don't talk as much. um, yeah. So ultimately, ultimately, this platform is very much about my perspective on planning and how I think work flows between product management and developers. So we have the concept of planning items. Planning items is essentially what we call a story in Jira. And the idea here is that, why did that not move? That didn't take before, did it? Oh, interesting. I should have taken. So the idea is that you are working on, you get your planning team to develop the story essentially, and then they create what they call, what are requirements to them. But from that, you can create one or many tasks. So you can go in and say, I want to add a task to this piece. And the task component of the system, which is name pending, is then able to be broken down for the developers to focus on and not for the product team to worry about. So these would be pointed or estimated. This is the work to do. This is the stuff that you can drag into sprints. So the sprint is attached. You can choose a sprint and then move it forward into there. That's the goal so far. So today, Loki sat on my hand. We'll do whatever development we can do with the dog now snoring on my lap. So let's go do that code review. So the purpose of the stream is to share what I'm doing, to share my approach to this software. It's not to say here's the one and only way of doing things. It's to see, if you have a different opinion, if you think that something's not working correctly or not configured correctly, if you think there's a different design that you've seen, it's there to be discussed. It's there to be open for debate and discussion. So yeah. So we changed the topics. We added that topic. It's getting slower. We created a script for tasks, and we tabbed it out. We didn't add any extra fields. That's fine. We created a script for sprints. We created a modification to tasks where we added associated sprint ID into tasks. Hold on. Yeah, let's view. That's fine. We created a sprint script. We added that to the view. So when you see these scripts, I create the scripts deliberately to build a database. I don't want to use migrations. I'm not messing around with migrations at this point. At the point the application is in a really good place from a data standpoint, I might consider making data migrations using EF for them at that point, but it's not a necessity, and these scripts kind of live forward. The idea being that if for whatever reason the system gets wiped out, I can repopulate everything from scratch pretty quickly. Although that gets harder and harder and harder as we add more. Sprints view. Yeah. Then we added the task layout component. We added the boards. Yeah, task component. Sprint service. We can create a sprint. Yeah, again, we got to go figure out add or create is the right term. We add the computed so we can get the sprints in alphabetical order, which again, we're going to come back to the read feature for getting all the sprints and the right feature for creating models, the model, the store. Well, we're only 17 files through. I think most of this is going to be sprint stuff, and then we can skip the rest because it's all updates and things. I did make some refactorings and some changes in here. Task detail assign sprint, that adds the drop down, that adds the control. There's that. There's the add sprint dialog. Basically, we did too much in one PR here, which is okay for the purpose of me developing it, but these could have been multiple PRs, so I will try and practice that a little bit more as we go forward. Yeah. I think we're good. Is everything perfect? Absolutely not. Select sprint component, select sprint component. That's the actual to create a drop down so you can add that sprint component anywhere. That'd be okay. Task service. So if I wanted to add it into the add task, I can now add it into the add task as well without actual cost. Start date, end date validator. Yeah, that just validates that. We added a route for the sprint. And then the rest is configuration. I rename some things. That's associated sprint. That's that. That's that. There's our validator. So this is the sprint name. We set it maximum 255 and the date time. So this is actually done. Doing PRs with yourself, something I've struggled with getting my head around. So this is too big. This is 122 files change. I've done way too much in this one. I should have made it smaller. I should have broken it up into individual pieces, and I will attempt to do that going forward so that I'm like not. Yes, it takes time to do the PR and do that, but it's worth it for the smaller PR. This is a useful process, especially if you're reviewing what you've done and what you've changed. You might have forgotten some stuff. You might have, done all sorts of other things. So it's worth doing it. These validators happen as the command is sent. So these validators in this instance actually validate the command going in. So you can actually do some pre-validation, exist checks, etc. on data if you want to avoid having the logic of the handler do that. And it's also a consistent layer. So the fluent validation there in the pipeline is useful. So this validates that the date time is correct and the name is valid and not empty. Create sprint as a handler, so that validator validates this. So this create. I'm sorry, Loki, was that inconvenient? This validator is run, and then we can call create sprint without actually having any extra logic in there, which makes that nice and clean and to purpose. And then the integrator, once the sprint has been created, it'll publish a sprint created event, which will then get picked up by this, load the sprint back out, and then publish the sprint to Kafka. Cleaned up some usings. We do the update. This is on the view side of things. No? No, that's updating the task to associate the sprint. Yeah, okay. That's that. Add fluent validation, the sprint entity, the task, sprint. So you can't do a PR in the true sense. You can't approve it because you can't approve your own PR. But at least you can use this workflow to go through and validate what you changed. You might miss a typo somewhere. You might, so it's worth going through a review. I renamed these add. So it's funny when you work on something, even as if you best laid plans and all, right? Even if our best intentions, when someone else gets to look at that code, they start to spot the the breaks, the cracks, right? So yesterday I'm going. Mojo was looking at this, and he noticed that I'd called use database, not add database, and somehow I crept that in where I said use. Now in .NET, if you set up uh, an API, so I'm sorry, Loki, but this is not fun. When you set up the builder, the default on the builder side of things, the builder.services, etc., is to use the word add. Once you get the app, the default is to use the word use. Well, I'd put use on the application on the builder side of things. So we went through there and changed that to make that a little bit more consistent. It's on the builder, so it's fine. But just an attempt to. Now, I think I know I've done it because some of these conflict with their actual extension methods, but they won't because of what they're extending. So we'll see how that goes going forward. But it's worth trying to be consistent. Here's the creator of the sprint. That's the sprint identifier. That's the rename. That's the validation. That's a rename. That's a rename. That's a rename. Rename. That's the renames. I still have a use there, but we'll worry about that later. Acquire sprint. Update sprint. So again, we just go and get the tenant IDs ready. This update sprint right now is called update sprint. It doesn't do anything but create a sprint. Once we have the ability to change the sprint name or edit the sprint dates, etc., this will change. But right now, it doesn't need to because that doesn't exist. Yagni. If command associated sprint identifier. So again, this is on the update of the task. So have we associated a sprint with it? Yeah. And that is going to start in 3 minutes. FYI, if you get stuck behind ads and I'm doing something that you're actually interested in, just say. Has changed. This was an inconsistency. Again, having someone looking at your code can help identify where you are inconsistent with your own preferences, right? Because we haven't got an editor config in here yet. So again, calling me out for, well, hold on, you said you like curly braces, but this one doesn't have curly braces. I know that that might be nicer for some people, but that's more clear what it's doing. So the vertical space, I don't mind. There's the model on the view domain. There's the task being updated. There's the sprint model on the view side of the view domain. We'll have to think about that naming. It's going to get confusing to talk about. There's a configuration. This was all wrong. I'd copied it. Oh no, this was originally called consumers. I renamed them to receivers, but I didn't rename the project. This was the first project where we refactored to consumers. That's why this got left behind. So for reference, Kafka and mass transit, or Kafka and service bus, mass transit in this case, has the concept of consumer. But if being that I'm using both technologies, if I use the word consumer for everything, you're not going to understand what is a Kafka consumer versus what is a message bus consumer. They're not going to be in the same project, and I can't have two projects called consumers. However, I do have a wrapper around the Kafka component, which is a receiver. So that receiver wraps the Kafka consumer so that it's an easier interface. So that's why receivers and consumers are separated out in the system. Receivers is my word. It's not a concept. It's just the name I gave them because they receive the event that Kafka consumer receives and publishes to it. And it uses a mediator style. So this is a receiver, and this basically receives the event and then just forwards it through mediator to the right thing. So yeah, it could do something like that. You don't have to do a message. You could actually publish to an API or do other things with it. Receivers. That's a rename. That's a rename. That's a rename. Okay, that's the rename. That's the rename. So I apologize if this is slightly boring, but this is something that I need to do. I need to get into this habit. And if I don't form the habit of doing this every time I do a PR, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I can just move on. And I've done it a few times, and I don't like the idea of skipping past these pieces. Um, Because if I miss a major file change or miss a rename or miss a bug that appears because of something I should have seen while reviewing these files, that's going to hurt more, especially as the project gets bigger and bigger. I'm going to be testing less and less of the application daily, right? I'm not going to find a bug potentially for weeks um, until I get to that point. I approve of the self PR review. Stranhorn, good morning. Thank you. How are you? How was your weekend? I'm sorry, Loki. Right now, I have a lump of a dog laying on my on my lap and resting his head on my keyboard. He keeps fidgeting because he can't get comfortable. No, no, all good. I think the process is running okay. We made a few too many changes in this PR, I think, um, but they were all good changes. So I was saying we've got a project. Mojo has started working on a back end management project of this called Control Tower. Um, he's got the first parts of that working over the weekend, so that now tenants get pushed to that application and you can view them. Ultimately, starting to build a management backend for the entire system, and it's allowed him to review what I've done so far and spot the contradictions and the discrepancies in my process. I didn't have this wrapped up in a method. I had this just straight in the program CS. So this is in the view, adding the database configuration. That looks fine. This is for the task to filter out the fields. This, yeah, only exposes identifier stats and associated. Yeah. So getting into the PR process is good to get into the habit of doing. Yeah, I think, as much as I want to skip past 122 files, which is too big a PR, um, it's useful to do this process. So I do apologize if it's boring and it's not got value. So on task type, we added the associated sprint ID. Yep, we ignore that field, and then that allows us to have add database here. That's what that changed. So now we don't have to have all the database configuration at the top of the program CS. On the query side of things, we added sprints. I will review my use of this stuff, and we added filtering and sorting on get tasks. That's primarily because I was experimenting with, okay, rather than having what's the standard in GraphQL for in the API side for having I want one versus I want many, and it actually seems like it's acceptable to create an endpoint that just takes the ID, but the problem is with that style, you don't get the filtering the same way. We'll go into that later on. Unit tests. When updating associated sprint of task, yeah. Update task, description and title remain unchanged, status remains unchanged, associated sprint, yeah. Passing in the null there. Identifier, I've got to get into the habit as well of not being um, um, what's the word? What's the right word here? Um, Not verbose. Redundant. Redundant is the best word. So if I'm working on something that's focused solely on task, why do I need to call it a task identifier? If the others have their explicit, the identifier should be the thing that I'm working on, and that should be a solid pattern. So I'm going to try and get better at doing that sort of stuff where I'm not just specifying what identifier I'm talking about because it should be very obvious if the focus of the thing is the identifier. The focus of the thing matches the identifier. So if I'm talking about task or I'm talking about sprint, identifier is the thing I'm talking about. Everything else has an explicit, tenant identifier, sprint identifier, etc. in the same code. Okay, that's the associate sprint identifier. When task does not exist, a requirement is associated. So Loki, I have an issue in that this chair, its padding is going. So my weight plus your weight Makes for a really uncomfortable chair for me. He just sighed. Um, acquire updated user. Task is update with associated sprint, so we should be able to get the right user. Rearrange it. That's fine. We passed the null. We have the extensions for global. We renamed consumers. Yep, that was all refactoring. Again, having someone else's eyes on code. Sorry, Dan is finishing his stream. Um, YouTube streaming much harder. Namespace refactor, and then unchanged files with check annotations. That's just that, yeah. Okay. Hey, Dan. I really liked and subscribed. Thank you very much. You gotta, if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. It gets that content going, getting in front of more people. I wish I had a. I wish I had a motor on the camera right now so that I could zoom down and show the fact that this dog has his eyes firmly closed and is fast asleep on my lap. Okay, those are our review files, so there we go. So if you're doing a self PR, you can't do approve. You can't approve yourself unless I'm missing something, but that doesn't really matter. This is only because I've got it set to require the. What's the matter, bud? What's the matter? My lap really isn't big enough for you to fall asleep on like that. For anyone joining, I'm not crazy. I do have a large, well, medium-sized dog on my lap. So we've decided that sleeping here is way better than sleeping down at my feet. So yeah, we're going to squash and merge this. This will move all these things. I've got some duplicated messages in there. Um, I did change registration methods for Builder, and then I added these commit messages because I know that they're going to get condensed so that they combine. That's a bad name. Got to start thinking more about this. So let's squash and merge that into development. Right, can do that. Yeah, got to think about it. Got to start being a little bit more tactical about my messages. Confirm squash and merge. Okay, so go over here, check out development. We also need to do, oh no, what did I change? We're going to shelve that for a second. That's okay. I forgot I did that. That's just that's actually something that's going to change anyway. Buddy, no, you might like this. I kind of need to type. Tell you what, here you go. You lay there and I'll just type on your back. How's that sound? We use you as a keyboard rest? No? Oh, come on. Uh, Come on, I'll get you a cookie. Where's the cookies? Do you want a cookie? Come on. Up, up. Oh. He's like, I'm not going anywhere, bud. Okay, so we do need to do one more PR. So because of the way the system lays out, you need to um, you need to do a PR for both sides. Sorry, I forgot the microphone was over there. You need to do a PR for both sides because the foundation component has its own changes. So if you're changing the Kafka messages, changing that style, then you need to do the same thing. So on this side, sprint integration event changed. So we added the sprint integration event. We changed the task integration event to include the associated sprint identifier. And then we added an extension into, because this is foundation is shared kernel, everything that's shared kernel, right? And we added this method. And this way, this method is so that date time can be correctly represented in, I think, no, it's not that one, in the actual code. Yeah, you see, I can't approve my own PR, but I can actually review it. So that's fine. So we're going to squash and merge that. Delete the branch. I am a big fan of deleting the branch the moment I've merged it. There's no benefit in keeping it out there. It just makes a mess. So we can pull that, update that branch. We can stop running as well. Stopping running would be a good idea. Again, if you're new to the stream, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, please feel free to share. This is not this stream is definitely not a how-to. Sometimes it should be a despite the way I do it. But things work. So now we can clean up those branches here. Delete the branch. Some of these I have to keep out because I've got changes on them. I know, bud. I know. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? Let's delete that branch. I like cleaning them up. I like deleting the branches so that there's no noise left outside. You don't get confused between branch names. You don't get all that sort of stuff that just left there. And over time, the repository becomes a little bit more manageable because it's cleaned. He's got your wrapped around his little paw. He does. He does. I'm just trying to figure out a way of sitting that I can. He can stay there if he wants to, or I can make it so annoying for him that he wants to get down. Do you want to get down, bud? Gonna get down? Getting kind of warm in here, isn't it? Okay. So let's make sure everything builds and runs before we start the next piece. Yeah, let's make sure that builds. So this gets checked out because it's in the same branch. It's not an individual project. We might make this project its own solution at some point because that will be safer. It just means from a solo dev perspective, and again, sorry, that yeah. I'm gonna take these out today. So, by the way, if you buy a $120 pair of Sennheiser IE200s, the best thing you can do is spend another $60 and replace the cable that comes with them. Although I should be thankful that you can actually replace them. The over the ear thing snapped. I was saying that last week. I got a new set of things, but they are much better. Okay. So that's running, that's running, that's running. Let's see if everything starts up. So we can go to tasks. I lasted almost a full year with them, and they just snapped in multiple places, so they're just annoying. They still work. It's just they don't fit over my ears, and it hurts. I had a pair of what was the other ones? I think the ones that BBB uses. I had a pair of them. They were horrible. I didn't like them. They didn't fit my ear properly. Okay, so we can now we should be able to go into something like this. We should be able to assign a sprint. That should update. I gotta spend some time at some point and figure out the flash because I don't know why that's happening. So test task 2 is updated. And there we go. Okay, so the next step, let's go back to planning. This isn't taking. Why is this not taking? Okay, this is something we need to investigate. This is a bug. So when I change this to change the date, it should make a request, right? Antius, hey, how's it going? It should make a request to the tasks, no, the planning endpoint, planning items, put. It should hit here, and it did come back with a success, right? That did do 200 okay. Let's check to see what it produced from a Kafka perspective then. Did it produce a change for the planning item? So planning items number 20, 52 seconds ago. So allow developers to build a sprint, review date 18th of the 10th, right? So then on the other side, on the view side, well, hold on. Yeah, 33 minutes ago. I changed that 33 minutes ago and 55 minutes ago. I've changed it multiple times. Loki, you cannot keep fidgeting. You've got to accept that my arm's going to go over your head. If you want to sit there, you deal with it. So on this side are the planning items. Where is it? What is it? It is allow developers to build a sprint. Okay. Yeah, it's updated. Okay. No, I changed it to the 21st, not to the 18th. Yeah, hold on. I changed it to the 21st. So planning items 18th. Yeah, so that's wrong. So I'm publishing it, but I'm publishing the wrong date. Funny bugger. Um, so this is the challenge with the way this is working, right? Because I have this is the source of truth, but the problem is the visuals tell a different story. So if I go here and look at the allow developers to build a sprint, right? What's the review date on this record? Is it the 21st or is it the 18th? Okay, so review date 18th. So what did I send? I sent the 21st. So we have a bug in the review date. Now, to the user, this is the truth. They don't see anything else. Now, to the backend system, right? Review date 18th. So it agrees, but if this says the 21st, but the rest say the 18th for whatever reason, to everybody else, you know, I even said updated 21st, so something isn't changing this. But to everybody else, it's um, the visual truth. So it is something you've got to figure out how to relay and also understand when you should change something. Because technically, you know, yes, it agrees with the 18th right now, but if that said the 21st, my job is to focus on getting that data to be updated into the systems, not to take what they say it is, because that's the way it shows. You want to say hello? If you look up there, if you look up there, right, you can say hello to people. You want to say hello up there? Just give them a minute. We're having a low key intermission again. Can we get down, please? Huh? Can we get down? I'll give you cookies. Do you want a million cookies? Do you want all the cookies? Do you want a big bone? Do you want a little bone? No? It doesn't because he's the headless dog on the stream. I don't think the look he turned around and gave me. Then he just tilts his head and looks at you like a teacher. Right, bud? You okay? Can I have hugs? Can I have a hug? No, no hugs. So today, by the way, I did not let him up on my lap. He didn't even jump. He laid on me and then in one move got up onto my lap. I mean, I let him stay, obviously, but I didn't say yeah. I didn't encourage him or try and lift him. He just actually got up onto my lap. So he's learning. Like Dota said earlier on, he's a cat. Hey, look, I've got a job to do. Can I do my thing? Would that be okay with you? Do you want to get down? You want to get down? So I apologize for the momentary break in this. Okay, so the problem comes review date equals review date. So we're not determining. So let's put a breakpoint there. Let's go here. So I'm not sure why this is creating a problem all of a sudden, right? So let's refresh that so we load the latest data. I'll load the data as it stands. Let's go to here and say, okay, let's now change the review date to the 21st. We should hit our breakpoint. There we go. So our command coming in This is not easy to do. Review date 21st. Okay, so let's go and F10, F10. Okay, I'm gonna F10. Okay, so it believes there are changes, and then the update planning item. Also, this goes to a domain service because there's more to do in here than just a simple update. There's a lot of updates, and I don't want to mess around with this. So we should get to here. Development around you is not easy. Could we please jump down and maybe line a floor, or do you want some cookies? If you want cookies, you're gonna have to get down though. Okay, so we have review date coming in. So that's F11 into there. If review date equals the previous review date, which it doesn't, or review date is less than. Oh, what? What idiot put that source code in there? Why would I say I eat your ears? Hum, hum. Okay, so that's clearly that's clearly the problem. I'm actually choosing today. That's an interesting bug. So let's do Liquid Sky, new branch, bug fix, review date, validation. Let's fix that first. And this is why time estimates never work, because my time estimate was, hey, we'll get sprints displaying today. And I've taken so long. I mean, okay, Loki's part of the problem, but I've taken so long to get here. Now I've discovered this bug. I've got to fix this bug because it's worth doing. So the assumption is that a review date can't be, you can't set a review date in the past. The invisible dog. Yeah, he's got no head, has he? Loki, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? Up here. Up here. What's this? Look. Look. There you go. See? He does have a face. Hi, Crystal Coda. How you doing? Okay. Your head gets de gets removed because it thinks you're like green screen. So it is right. You shouldn't be able to you shouldn't be able to move a review date back, right? You shouldn't be able to go in here and say, "Oh, well, I want to review this next the previous month." So you can never go forward. But the problem is that up until now, I've said the review date's in the future. But you should you be able to assign it to the day? Does it make sense? So let me actually, before I do actually bug fix, let me test domain test. Concerning planning item updated and associated projects exist. When review date is changed, review date is updated, review date. So I haven't got an explicit test um, around this. Now the problem comes from something else triggers that there is a change because no, only the existence of the domain event. Um, so the update review date we know doesn't do this, right? So something else triggers that as well. Um, Now the question is, for me at least, well, two things. The validation is clearly hidden. I haven't got a unit test explicitly stating that you can't set a review date for the past. So we do need a test when review date is changed before current date. Well, bud, is it confusing you? Right. So we want to validate that. Now we get into date time testing. This is where this gets messy because date time testing is nightmarish because you can't control date times very easily. Um, so this is going to be challenging. Okay, listen. I appreciate you. I love that you want to be friendly and cuddly, but you're going to have to get down because I can't feel my legs. No, no, we're going to have to get down, bud. Come here. Come here. Come here. I know. I know. So we can turn. There you go. Come on. Good boy. Good boy for being patient. Good girl, Taylor, for being patient. Okay. So the problem, the part of the issue is that I have now got a domain service that calls the update. The update exists in the model, and this compares directly to the current date time. So it's hidden inside of an object that has no dependency injection. So that rule is now hard coded inside of my model, which is not good. But I don't have. A good pattern for validating that anywhere else. And I kind of want to figure out how I should write this. Because anything I do then starts to move this behavior elsewhere. And I'm starting to wonder about how to do that effectively. So up until now, I've relied upon basic validation being available. Like this is okay, right? I don't mind this because for whatever reason, if you try and update the review date with the existing review date, or with a with the existing review date, it should be like no, and it is a date. It's not. There's no time aspect to it. But this clearly, if I set it to the 21st, the fact that it passes in the 21st at midnight, it is before the current date time, so it just rejects it. Right. So it's not a bug, but it is a thing that I need to. So the main service definitely makes sense now because this is where it's going to get more complex. My instinct there, by the way, was to build something that's similar to public public class should extension can extensions public static um and then public static bool can see this T. A bit delayed on this since I was heading up to get coffee when you were talking about not being able to approve your own PR. Git repo policies for not being able to approve your own PR common, but it's saying you can turn it on off. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can do that. I can switch that off. I mean, the more important part is that I take the time to do it. But that does raise the point that if I make it so that I can approve my own PR, then it can go in there as a should approve. So requires an approval, and I can approve my own. Then at least it needs. Then it gets what it needs. Entity params func t bool predicates. Pardon me. Actually, as much as I don't want to use the word should is actually more appropriate here than than anywhere else, right? Because what I'm thinking is, let's be explicit. What I'm thinking is if model.review date that should update, and then D goes to D. So the D value here is the date less than or equal to date time dot UTC now, right? Oh, great then. Right. Completely understand that. I do all my work in PRs as well, even if I'm on the one reviewing and improving my own. If I were an actual team, I'd turn on the protection to be able to. Yeah, it is actually set that way. I override it deliberately, so it's it's done. But again, I can't approve my own. But at the very least, from a workflow perspective, making sure I do review the PR before I do a merge is what I need to do. So this is one way of doing this. Now, this doesn't solve my problem because my date time validation needs to be injected into my date time would need to be injected because I don't believe C sharp time provider. Yeah, because you'd have to inject the time provider, and you can mock the time provider. I believe. I think that's how they did it. Oh, Microsoft created some abstractions, didn't they, around date time that aren't time provider. C sharp. Come on. It's not .NET. .NET 8. I think it was using time provider. I think time provider is now a part of the framework. That's you see the other examples. Yeah, time provider. Like to me, from a design perspective, injecting time provider into my domain service seems wrong I just don't. I put this as a bug fix, and it's not just this, but this would remove that logic from inside of there, and there'd just be basic validation there. And then, but as a pattern, I have to then go in on this, right? Where update details, again, that's fine. If it's the same, it doesn't matter. Assign user, it doesn't matter. Associate projects. This is more complicated, right? This now shouldn't necessarily live inside of here because it's way more complicated as far as validation goes. And again, update status, you could argue that's the exact same as an equals. Right? It's not null and it's not empty. It's not null and it's not equal to the current one. Um, but this is a dependency I can't put in the model and test effectively. So where do I put that? And if I don't put it on the model, then anybody taking a dependency, anyone loading the model up could essentially just call update without any validation and set the date time. So the rule going with the model is what I was aiming for, but it's still, that's not. So my other option is something like this, where we, and I'm interested in opinions here. If you have an opinion on how you would do this, if you understand what I'm doing, you know, please feel free. So date time, this would be earliest review date, right? And but again, if you're feeding that in, what does it matter? You know, and again, you could override that somewhere else because you're feeding that dependency in there. A time provider isn't a static, so I can't just say, oh, the time provider. Um, I don't believe it was that way. Public abstract class time provider, fake time provider, time provider. Yeah. Just like it when Microsoft doesn't give you any examples of usage. It's just straight up. Here's the docs. Well, it's not just Microsoft either. It's everyone. Like if you're going to give documentation, a little bit of an example on how it's used in context. Make it easy to test time dependent code. You can use fake time provider from the, but you have to inject. I'm pretty sure time providers are. Finally is an abstraction. Time provider system. Is it that though? Do I do or review date less than time provider dot system dot get UTC now? I think that's the better of the options because we're not feeding it in. We're built the rules there. We can test it, and it's not. Review date is changed, and is before current date. And then from the testing perspective, build a. Please tell me I don't have to do that. Oh, that's if I want to inject time provider. Oh, but I'm going to need the abstraction. Yeah, that's not going to work the way I want it to do. I have to inject the time provider. Because it doesn't swap it out. Fraction that I can swap out, but so close. Mojo, hello. Good morning. So that doesn't help us. That does not help one bit. You know what? We'll have to add that as a bug because there's no way that I'm getting back around that. It's just not. It's not feasible. Let's delete that. Check out that. It's bigger. The thing is that's bigger than anything I can do right this second. I'm not going to fix that through a knee jerk change. The reality is that the only way it works is if right now I set the date to the future. You can't set it for the current date. It has to be set for the future, and we're going to have to figure out what validation looks like there to make sure it's guarded. The whole purpose of putting these rules inside of the model itself was to do things like, keep that close so that you don't have the option of going around it. Every option I have there requires some dependency injection of some form. So it might be that what we have to do is create some sort of validator that can do the things it needs to do, and that's a whole different piece around the outside. There's more complicated business logic, more complicated. Well, that is business logic, yeah. It just requires a little bit more effort there, and my brain is not solving that in the next 25 minutes. Um, but again, I would be interested in anyone's opinions on how you would do that in this instance. So this model again is it's the database model. We set the things on the model. We protect them with methods so that you can only set them one way, and that they trigger the right events so that the system can react to it. Right. So side effect of this event driven system is that if I want to change something, I have to wrap it. Now maybe these are um, maybe I flip these and these are actions that can be performed. And that way they're not just uh, methods on there. I don't know. I've got to think about that design. But ultimately, the idea is that they should trigger the domain events, and that's the way that should work. So, Shift F9, that's running. Okay. So the point was to allow developers to build a sprint, which was actually where I started, into the current week. And that's now not running, so that's that. So if you are interested in this stuff and you get, again, thoughts, questions, opinions, there's also Discord that is available if you want to log into it. And all the videos all the content I produce for this project is up on YouTube in the playlist for project management and planning. So this one, if we move it to the 22nd, it will work fine. You just can't move it to the current date. That is a defect in the system, caused by the fact that the validation is in that model for less than the current date time. Okay, so this one, a menu option should be visible from the task screen offering access to boards. A button should appear on the empty page with the add sprint. When I click the add sprint button, I should be presented with a dialog offering the following values: sprint name, start date, end date. When I click add, a sprint should be created. I should be able to assign tasks from the backlog to current sprint. When I click on a task, I should see the sprint option above the status dropdown that offers all sprints. One of the things that this does highlight is I use the word current sprint. We have no concept of current. We have no concept of open. I'd previously removed the word open from somewhere else. So there's going to be some challenges here is as we start to move into the sprints, every single term opens up more options, right? Every single little word. And it's, again, if you're working in a dev team, this is why it's very important to get requirements. It's very important to understand requirements. That one word there brings with it an assumption. It might not be your assumption, but it might be the product manager's assumption, right? They might be assuming that we understand that a sprint has current. Like, what is the current sprint? What is, So as a product manager, it's easy to write that stuff. I did it, right? I wrote this, I wrote this requirement. I'm the product manager and the developer, and I still didn't pick up on it until after I started reading it back again. When I started to go through, have I met the requirements of this planning item, right? So again, if you haven't seen Liquid Sky before, this is essentially what you would call a story, all right? Essentially, right now. But the tasks are what is worked on. So the story doesn't go into a sprint. The tasks for the story go into the sprint. And if one story's tasks are all in one sprint, great. But planning item is closer to story than it is to anything else. And the tasks are the things that developers work on. The tasks are the things that we're going to point or estimate later when we get there. But I wanted to highlight that I should be able to assign tasks, and I'll zoom in there. I should be able to assign tasks from the backlog. I love finding old code with the name new. To a current sprint. We don't have the concept, right? So all we can do is when we go over the tasks, go here. When we click on this, we can set a sprint. There is no concept of current. There's also some other challenges there that leads to, but I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole right this second. But if we go back over here, allow developers to build a sprint. Without the word current, new view actually replaced by view. It's when you're trying to make code work and you're trying to make it work in parallel and you are not certain about how, it is the new one, right? So this particular planning item, I would say, is done. So we move that to completed. So that will disappear. New view. Yeah. Closing sprints. Again, that's a concept we're going to need because we should have open sprints. Now, how we choose active, we'll get to that later. But let's go here and let's figure out what this looks like. Because again, I'm not where I should be. This viewing sprints. So as a that's gonna get hot. As a developer, or as a team lead or as a product manager, as a team lead probably, I want to be able to pull work from the backlog, or actually let's go with see the current sprint. We've already got the assignment. Hey Saber, how you doing? Welcome in. So let me go here, tasks, new item there. What I want to see is the sprints available and the work assigned to them, right? And right now, I think what we'll do is we'll loop through all the sprints. No, because again, can I? What's an effective way of doing this? I think to filter, to show a sprint, default to 1, and you can select between the sprints right now. That's probably the better way. Because we're going to get, what we're going to get, what you're going to find over the course of this week, we're going to get into the fact that I don't have teams, so I have no association. So a sprint is just a grouping of work. I can see everything because I'm not on a team. And again, that lack of team workflow is going to start tripping me up from a solo development perspective. And what it will, the challenge I'll hit is everything I'm developing will be based upon my solo experience of the system, trying to pretend that I'm multiple teams, and that's going to keep tripping me up. And so, if I develop too much, I'm not going to be able to change it very easily. But a lot has to be developed to get it to the point where we can test it, and then I can open it up, and then we can start actually pretending we are teams, potentially, and people can help me out with that, right? Because I'm developing in a vacuum. Hey, Hexac, how you doing? Which is dangerous, right? Um, so it's why I'm always asking for feedback. It's always why I'm open to ideas. If you have opinions on things, etc., it's easy to ask. But why I'm open to talking about this, because if you actually need a little bit more context, I'm happy to discuss it more and show it off more. So, um, uh, seeing sprints as a developer, I should be able to select a sprint from the drop down. From a drop, I should be able to select a sprint and see the current progress of the tasks within the sprint. Sorry, can you remind me what you're building? Is it a task manager for that? It's a planning application. So it's a product planning application. Think Jira. The goal is to build something that is focused on the correct pieces. So planning is its own concept. It is not linked to sprints. It is just a thing that needs to be in progress, and is able to define the requirements, and then the tasks are driven from the requirements, and those are the things we will work on. So it's trying to break up that product management and development component, but tie them all back together and allow people to see where they are in context of the piece they care about the most. Should be able to. It's not ballerina within the sprint. So we're going to put this for review by Wednesday. Assigned to Jeffrey, and it is planning and story. Story is a bad name for that. Create that. Seeing sprints. That's not opening there because of that. So the idea here now, I have this. This is essentially the story, but now I have requirements for this. So selecting sprint. On the boards screen, I should be able to see a drop down. Now, ultimately, I don't believe this will go this way. I think that, again, it's an evolutionary step, this piece, because I think that the boards will be for the teams. Each team, so once you're in a team, the active sprint will be the one that's showing here. So it wouldn't be, and the reason it's called boards is because it could actually be the sprint board or it could be Kanban or whatever. So you might not select the sprint here in the long term, but for right now, to try and get the concepts in there, to try and get the visualizations in there, and start moving the process along, this is a necessary piece. And again, hopefully, what I'm showing on the stream is it's not just random chaos, although there is an element of it. It's not just random chaos. It is also highlighting that just because I've built something and coded a lot of stuff doesn't mean that it shouldn't change and adapt to the growing needs of the application. I'm not going to try and plan everything out there because, again, some of this is now trying to get me to my long-term goal, right? Because it's not actually this piece that's the big focus. This is no different than Jira. This is no different than any other product, right? What my focus is once we start to get into the moving things between columns and updating the comments on things and changing things, that is where I want to focus, because it's the feeding information back to the right people at the right time. That's one of the big focuses of this application, and letting people understand, oh, by the way, all this changed. And that changes things going to be massive. Just from what we've done so far on changes, it is big, but it is going to be way bigger and way more complicated from that perspective. So once I get back to that piece, there's going to be a lot of work spent on calculating changes, figuring out reactions, like where emails go, where text messages go, where other things go, and we'll hook all that together later on, later down the line. But we need to get this piece in so we can start to see the workflows. So on the board screen, I should be able to see a drop down of the current sprints, of the sprints. I've got to avoid terminology here because every time I add some terminology, it comes with an implicit assumption from me. But you know, again, it's why as a developer, if you're looking at requirements, you should read them, and simple words like current or closed or active, and if you don't have the concept of a status in that thing, dig in, ask questions. That's the thing. It's like you want to understand, because they might, as a product manager, the idea of the requirements here is so that the product manager can write down their ideas. We can dig into them before they become actual defined work. Hi Sally, how you doing? The problem with tools like Jira is the product manager goes off, they create a story, they build out the requirements in the description of the story, and that sits in the backlog. If someone else comes along and looks at it and says, why isn't this pointed yet? All the work's understood, let's go. Right? So that's why we end up adding statuses. We end up adding ready for dev as a status, or ready for planning, or more requirements gathering required, etc. The idea of this is while the product manager is working on it, it's in preparing. from a management side of things, you can see how much stuff is ready for dev by, okay, how many items are ready for development and have been tasked out. That will be visible to everybody else. And when a task is added, people will be notified a task has been added, a task has been added. And the developers shouldn't just be able to add tasks, add extra work without it being visible to the rest, but in the same, all they care about is the requirements. So, yeah, that's the point. It's important to understand this stuff beforehand, and I think this is what I'm trying to focus on. I should be able to see a drop down of the sprints. When I select a drop down, I should see a board appear with the sprint name and 4 swim lanes. No. Progress complete. Yeah. Backlog in progress complete. Again, all this is getting refined. Hey, Sully. How's it going? Want to come in? See the cards. When the sprint board loads, now here's the thing. This the current tasks should show in the correct columns. That's the way that a PM would think about this, right? They would not think about this as separate things. What I was about to do is create a requirement based purely on the technical requirements, and that's not right. This is not what I want to do is promote the idea that the PM can come along and write the thing they think they're writing without worrying about does it fit neatly in a technical component. Yes, they should be thinking about breaking up the requirements into usable pieces. Like if this was delivered now, it would have value, right? They should be thinking about the requirements in that perspective. But this could yield many different actual technical tasks, and that's the point. Changing status as a developer, I should be able to drag and drop a card from a swim lane on the board to another swim lane to update its status. Okay. So now from the development perspective, and again, I apologize for not getting on with more of the development today. The stream is deliberately, I don't do a lot of pre-planning on the stream because I feel that would be artificial. It wouldn't show my process. And again, this isn't a fully professional process because it's like, it's one person working on a project on a stream, right? But it is. I'm trying to show the whole how difficult it is to identify these things, to break them down, the flow of gathering the requirements, how difficult that is to actually define those requirements, and then once you start to merge them in, you know, each one of these things opens up a whole different branch of work, right? I'm getting to the point where there is so much more work to do on Liquid Sky as a platform that I don't know how I get to all of it, right? There's things I'd love to do. There's things that I ideally love to tackle more. There's things like, okay, well, these aren't sufficient. So who configures these? Are they configured by the customer? You know, status right now is a string, but who configures these? How are they handled? There's all sorts of other things that go on here that is challenging. So anyway, let's test this out. So we need to do um, um, create a board component. I stopped watching one stream when I hear them on podcasts being interviewed saying how all his content was planned out weeks and months in advance, when it appeared that he was spontaneous and would often go off down rabbit holes from chat comments. So I appreciate you saying that you don't plan things out. Thank you, Sully. Yeah. Um, I think it's disingenuous to try and say, like to come into the stream prepared, because I think it shows. If I want to polish content, I would watch YouTube or plus. Yeah, I think it shows the reality of, you know, one of the things that last week highlighted. Good morning, Napalm, by the way, was the fact that I keep saying time estimates are bad, right? And I think we are bad at time estimates. And last week I was like, oh, we're going to do this, and this is the goal. This is now 2 weeks I've been saying I'm going to do the sprint boards, and even today I was hoping to get to the sprint boards by doing the PR at the beginning. Is almost the end of the stream. I haven't got to that part. I'm planning that part. So tomorrow, so I'm 2 hours behind where I expected to be even at the beginning of this stream. So I think it's um yeah. From Twitch, I want the interaction, seeing how you deal with the issues you come up with. Nice. Yeah. Speaking of the time estimates, I need to do some estimates for some work I investigated last week. But we're bad at time estimates, right? Because there's always something else. There's another challenge. And it's why I know I might harp on it about it a little bit, but when you're reading requirements from PMs, it's important to understand if a concept has been introduced, because um, and understand that you are on the same page as far as language goes, because it can break your estimates if they've got an assumption of something and you don't have that concept. It's worth talking about and getting out there and clarifying beforehand. So if someone says current sprint and you don't have this concept of current, like I don't, what does that mean, right? Because again, if I go to a task over here and I try and assign a sprint, well, what does it mean? What's current sprint? And again, we're going to get into the whole, well, what does a name matter if you've got 5 teams working on sprints? Each team has a sprint. What is offered here, right? So we're going to get into how that works, etc. further. But yeah, I think as much as I would like to be, I do some work off stream on the project, but I don't go into it with the intention of planning for the next stream. So yeah, create a board component. The board should have a title, should have the sprint title. So hold on, let's think about this. Create a board component, new client component for sprint board. We're going to do explicitly sprint board right now. And we're going to do a new client component, add drop down to boards landing page, display board with with 3 swim lanes for right now. Again, this is all going to change, so it's going to be hard coded, but it's going to be a similar concept to this. So it's going to group them, but it's going to be hard coded for right now. But then we're going to have to talk about how we do that more flexibly, because again, allowing an organization to set their own swim lanes. I think that ultimately there's. Sorry, let me do. Yeah, add task. So I think ultimately there's 3 pieces, right? It's not started, backlog. It's in progress. We're working on it. Complete. It's done. I think that ultimately what you do is you say, okay, here's the swim lanes. What is your beginning? What is your middle? What is your end? and one of those swim lanes has to be that, and you can add any status in between, but you have those three concepts at the core, and that's enough for the system to work off of. But we'll see how that goes as we flex it. Again, I think the status is probably something that might be managed at the and even this status, right? We're going to talk about what it means for this to be. So planning items, I think this is a review board, and then once work begins, it comes out of this board and moves to somewhere else, to in progress or something else, because it's not going to work having the review date in here anymore. Is clear. The review date is a good idea. Blow my own horn. The review date is a good idea because it does mean that a product manager can prioritize the work they need to look at and have it come back up into their visuals in the right window. This upcoming, we'll probably do the week after this current one, and then nothing else. And the past, again, past due should not be past due. This should not gather, right? Again, you should be able to go in here and just say, yeah, that's done. That's done. And cut this backlog down. I wouldn't want to do bulk actions here. I think bulk actions would be a mistake. But your past due backlog should not be so big because they should not be working on it in that way. And you can show them all again. So seeing sprints. Next task would be to load tasks into board. API GraphQL filter by sprint, update store for query, update board component to load cards. Categories, yeah, the stats comes down. Let's do that. So that will get that done. So 2 tasks there. We haven't got any dynamic updates on these things yet, so they need to be calculated. And then, oh, not that one. Add, drag, drop cards should allow dragging from one column to another. Drag and drop on the UI is fine. Let's just do UI there just to highlight that. By the way, you've approved more of my PRs in the past week than my work has approved in the past month. That's not good. uh, yeah. Well though, it worked. So for anyone not understanding that, so Mojo is working on the management component of this platform. They're getting up to speed with the ideas, the technologies, etc. And we're kind of discussing interactions. And Mojo has built a what we refer to as Control Tower, which is a project that will when a tenant is registered right now, it will get consumed by that system as well as Liquid Sky, and then will allow us to see active tenants and all those sorts of fun things. So we'll start building that out. So more playing with the technology. I won't stream Control Tower stuff. I will not change Control Tower stuff on stream. That stuff is separate for right now, and we'll talk about that. Also, it uses Next, so that's not my wheelhouse for the client, but that's a deliberate option. So yeah. So now update status through drag and drop. Update store to update task status. When changed. Update status on card when dragged to a column. By just saying, there's just on this project alone now, there's so many different things to do. There's so many different directions, so many pieces that can be built. Um, it is got, because every feature, like I add adds more complexity, it adds more things that it's going to engage, and there's more options as far as how to direct things, and then the back end, and yeah, it's um update status on card when dragged to a column. Um, so we already have by doing the drop down on the card, we've already introduced the facility to do that. So it might be that what we want to consider that is not doing that. So a drag and drop of cards might be a technical challenge though. So actually getting the drag and dropping working, um, dragging from one column to another. Well, that saves way too frequently. Code that fits in your head. This fits in my head somewhere. On drop should update the task with the status of the column redirect to. I think that needs to be changed to on blur rather than on change. It's actually working, whereas previously it wasn't. That didn't used to work, right? So we drag that to verifying projects. Yeah. Okay. So I think realistically that is usable. We can go off and do that tomorrow. We can start working on that. And again, this right now is just I don't know how it's going to lay out fully. I haven't really considered that. Adding comments on tasks, adding attachments to tasks. So if there's dev documentation or something that we want to add to a task, if there's a task that is a spike essentially, then we probably want to do that. Maybe we do have categories of tasks. There's all sorts of different things that I need to contemplate and think about how to do that. But the goal is very much to get that this somewhere in here where maybe it's like a objective or just requirement. Maybe it's up here somewhere, but yeah. But it's the why. Why are we doing this particular task and what does it hook to? And so you can review the requirements. And there we go. So tomorrow, unless there's any blockers, I will start on this piece. So that's now it's ready for planning. We did ready for planning piece, right? Now we're in progress, right? Um, this piece, closing a sprint. I should be able to close a sprint either because it's completed or because we no longer need a sprint. That would be I should be able to complete the sprint. The on the sprint board as a team lead, I should be able to complete a sprint. Any work that is not completed should be. No, doesn't matter. So let's move that to ready for planning. It's wrong, but let's move to ready for planning because the reality is we need to talk way more about what that involves because completing the sprint is one thing, but it's not necessarily just completing the sprint. We don't have the status. We don't have that concept. So from a planning perspective, that this will highlight that piece, and it opens up all sorts of other stuff. Also, from the planning item, the backlog shows all items should not show completed work. The backlog should only show work that has not been not show completed I'll show work that's not been. This is where comments are going to become important. But let's just show only work that's not been completed or completed work. That's going to go to. Let's move that up to next week. Jeffrey, that's planning. Create that. Wow. Again, like I just said, there's a whole set of stuff that opens up. Should the backlog show? Should this by default allow filtering out things that aren't assigned to a sprint? Should I show the sprint? Should I show the status? There's all manner of things that need to be looked at and reviewed as we go. And again, I'm very interested in understanding if you see something on the screen and you think, well, hold on, that doesn't work that way. If you're watching me close enough to pay attention to my workflow, or you're interested, ask. I would be interested genuinely in any feedback, any thoughts, opinions as I move forward. Like that doesn't work. Why would that work? Even if you think it's a like an assumption, right? That's the point. The point is to get away from assumptions and to try and highlight that we need to ask questions to understand things more, and not be closed off and assume that because someone wrote something that's the right way. So, I want to thank today. There's been several viewers on YouTube. Um, I haven't seen any comments, but I do want to thank you for hanging out in YouTube. YouTube is a little harder from a discoverability perspective. To get people to see the stream, and again, at this point, I don't like growing the stream is not a primary focus of what I do. Right, I do what I do to share what I do and how I'm doing it, so that other people can see my way of doing it and maybe say, "Oh, I like that," or "No, that's horrible. I don't like that." Um, but in the same, growing the stream gets more opinions and more feedback. So if you're on YouTube, if you've liked what you've been watching, I would appreciate you hitting the like button. And if you want to come back for more, the subscribe button is right there as well. Um, the whole like, share, subscribe stuff still feels very alien, but it is a necessary part if I want to continue to move forward. Okay. Is Adrian Land still streaming? Yes. So we rated Adrian Learns the other week. I don't get to hang out much in the streams I read into, but it's a nice chill stream. Um, Working on bot stuff today, some TypeScript, and yeah, it looks interesting stuff, and it's not my usual target. So I will be back tomorrow. We will do the sprint boards. That is the goal. PrimeNG does allow the drag and drop, so I think that it's okay. I think that's going to take me more time than I expect with the CSS and stuff. So if I was padding this, I'd say, okay, well, by Wednesday, we should be looking at having the sprint boards kind of working in a rough way. Don't forget, it is Monday. Monday is a one more line stream. Going from a Microsoft Java stream to a Microsoft JavaScript stream. Uh, Microsoft Java. Eesh. I think they long since diverged. But I see the point. So One Line does more .NET development. If you like this sort of stuff, it's very worth checking out One Line. Right now, he's doing work projects, so he does some Blazor stuff in there, but it's actual work, real life stuff. So very, very highly recommend checking out One Line stream. Also, a fantastic developer, really smart, and just a really great stream to hang out in. So yeah, please, if you haven't already followed One Line, recommend it. Unfortunately, on YouTube, I don't have the option of rating or promoting any YouTube streams. Um, but I can say if you get the chance and you're interested in game dev and stuff, Dan Garep recently was unceremoniously or is struggling with some Twitch stuff and has started streaming on YouTube. It's a quiet stream. I don't know how to do it in parallel as Twitch though, so I'll have to learn about that. But thank you for the knowledge there. I will try and figure that out when I find more YouTube dev streamers as well. But for right now, let's go raid Adrian. I would, well, yeah. Let me finish what I was saying about Dan. So Dan is streaming on YouTube, because some problems with Twitch. It's a great place to go and hang out. He's a really nice guy. He's building a game, his first ever game, and yeah, I appreciate giving him some support because he's awesome. So thank you very much for joining me. I will be back tomorrow. We'll do sprints, and yeah, that's that. Take care, all. Have a great day. See you again soon. Bye, all.